Hello, good morning. This is Syed Vilayat Hussain. I'm presenting a video lecture series about the mathematics course of matriculation of KPK board. And the first chapter of metric mathematics course, that is quadratic equation. So I'm presenting these all chapters by topic wise. So today I have selected that I'll talk about the quadratic equation, the general form of quadratic equation, and the terms of quadratic equation, and degree of quadratic equation, and solution of quadratic equation. And I also will try my best to present to specify that how many methods we have in order to solve a quadratic equation. So first of all, let me write the general form of quadratic equation. So the general form of quadratic equation is ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0, where a should not be equal to 0. Now, according to the degree of quadratic equation which is concerned, so the degree of quadratic equation must always be 2. It means that in every terms we have a variable, and the power of variable must be a whole number. For example, with this c, which is a constant, here we also have a one variable, that is x, but the power of x is 0. So because of this reason, we don't take care of to write this x power 0, because already we know that x power 0 is already 1. So similarly here the power of variable is 0, whereas with the second terms bx, the power of variable is 1, and with the third term x with a x square, the power of variable is 2. So as an algebraic property, whenever there is an algebraic equation with us, so we have to decide the degree of polynomial. So where there is the highest degree of variable, that is called the degree of quadratic equation. So the quadratic equation is the one, according to definition we can also say that quadratic equation is the one which has a maximum power of variable, that is 2, that is called quadratic equation. Now I've written that a should not be equal to 0. What does it mean? Here in this quadratic equation we have one variable, but with a coefficient we can say there are three coefficients. One is a, b, and c. So instead of b and c, I just wrote it that a should not be equal to 0. So why not b and c? The reason behind it is that this a should not be equal to 0. It means that if a is equal to 0, so this whole term will be cancelled, because ax square when multiplied with 0, so it will become completely 0. Just two terms will remain, bx plus c is equal to 0. Now this equation will not I can say that this equation will not remain a quadratic equation when e is equal to 0. It will be converted into a linear equation. So now this is not a general form of quadratic equation. Bx plus c is equal to 0 is the general form of a linear equation. A linear equation is an equation in which the degree of variable is 1, because here is the power of variable is 1, so we can say that this is the linear equation, general form of linear equation. So therefore, if b is 0, no matter, the quadratic form, the quadratic property of this equation will remain still quadratic even if b and c both are 0, no matter. But this a should not be 0. Therefore, whenever we have to talk about the general form of quadratic equation, so a should not be 0, b and c, if they are 0, no matter, these two terms will cancel. It will not make any problem. The problem will become just here with ax square. So this is the general form of quadratic equation. Now I'm coming to the next point, that is the terms of quadratic equation. That how many terms are mostly present in the quadratic equation. In a quadratic equation, it is not necessary to say that it always contains three terms. One is ax square and the second bx plus c is equal to 0. I mean to say that always it is not necessary to say that a quadratic equation will be the one which has always a three terms. No, because sometimes we have to write this quadratic equation in four term as well whenever we have to factorize. So that is also a quadratic equation. Terms maybe three, maybe four, it doesn't matter, maybe one, even just ax square, it is also a quadratic equation, except bx plus c. So this is also quadratic equation. So this is the reason, on behalf of this reason, I can say that the number of terms of quadratic equation is not limited. It might be 1, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4, but the degree should be 2. That is the reason. The main reason behind the quadratic equation, that it is or not, is just the degree of power, the degree of variable or power, I can say it must be 2. So this is the quadratic equation. Now I'm coming to the another point, that is the solution of quadratic equation. Whenever we have to talk about the solution of quadratic equation, and as from the beginning we already know that whenever we have to solve a linear equation, I mean bx plus c is equal to 0, so this one variable, since its degree is 1, so the equation will have only one solution. Whatever this x is equal to, maybe positive integer, maybe negative integer, and maybe just a fraction, or maybe 0, so it must be 1. We cannot say that x has two value. X will always have only one solution, only one value will be there, because it is a linear equation. Whereas in quadratic equation the case is different. In a quadratic equation, since the degree of variable bx plus c is equal to 0, since degree is 2, so there must be two solution of this one variable. I mean to say that x must be equal to one value and another value, and these two value whenever put in this equation, so both must satisfy this equation. Instead of x, if you write the first value, and instead of x, if you will write the second value, so both must satisfy the equation. Otherwise, if even one or both will not satisfy the equation, it means your solution is wrong. The question solution is not correct. You will have to make it correct. So according to, as I'm talking about the solution of quadratic equation, so there are two possibility. There are three methods on behalf of which we can solve any quadratic equation. So these, let me write the name of these three methods. The first method by which we can solve any quadratic equation, that is factorization. 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 And the second method which we have to follow in order to solve this quadratic equation, that is completing square method. LETING, completing SQUARE square method, METHOD. And the third method by which we can solve any quadratic equation, that is by quadratic formula. QUADRATIC, quadratic formula. So by quadratic formula, I mean to say that formula is like this. X is equal to minus b plus minus square root, so b square minus 4ac divided by 2a. Because whenever the quadratic equation is given, we already know the values of a, b and c, so just put all these value in this formula, solve it according to the rules of mathematics. So at the end you will have two values of variable x. That is the solution of biquadratic formula. But before going to solve by quadratic formula, we will have to do the derivation of this formula, that how and from what this formula has been derived. So now I am going to solve 2 or 3 questions by factorization and completing square method, and later I'll explain the derivation of this quadratic formula and the application of this quadratic formula in order to solve any quadratic equation. So now I am coming to solve any single quadratic equation by factorization method. But just before going to start, I just want to remind and force that always we should have to keep in mind, whenever someone is asking us, someone may ask about the solution of quadratic equation, that how many methods we have in order to solve any quadratic equation. So at that moment we can say that there are 3 methods by which we can solve any quadratic equation, and the name of these methods are the first one is factorization, and the second one is completing square, and the third one, that is by quadratic formula we can solve any quadratic equation. So now I'm proceeding towards the method of factorization. So let me solve one question by factorization method. The question is, I'll write from the book. The question is 2x square plus 2x minus 11 is equal to 1. Now I took it just this question as an example in order to solve by factorization. The first thing which must be kept in mind, that is the general form of quadratic equation. Whenever you know the general form of quadratic equation, so you can easily bring a random question to a general form, then you can solve it easily. Now this question has not been written in a general form, because in a general form, if I'll compare all these terms with variable and coefficient with coefficient, even sign with sign, so you will see the difference. Just let me write the general form, as already we know, ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So now the given question is not given in a quadratic form. First you will have to put, or I can say convert, into a general form of quadratic equation, then you can solve it easily. So let me convert it into a quadratic general form of quadratic equation. So 2 will remain here, it will become 2x square plus 2x minus 11 minus 1 is equal to 0. So now this minus 1 is not possible to be added with this term or with a quadratic term. It means I can say that minus 1 neither be added with a linear term nor with the quadratic term. It will be just added with a constant, because both have same x power 0. So they both will be added, so the question will be converted into a general form of quadratic equation. So it will become 2x square plus 2x minus 12, because minus 11 minus 1, it will become minus 12 is equal to 0. Now there is one another possibility, and that possibility may not be available in any question, because we already know that there are 3 terms and all 3 terms coefficients are divisible by 2. For example, This 2 is divided by 2, again 2 is divided by 2, and 12 is also divided by 2, so 0 divided by 2. We can write, we can divide. Why we are doing so? Because by this way it will be quite easy to solve. If we will not divide, no matter, the question will not be wrong. In a quadratic, it doesn't necessary to make the coefficient of x square 1 or 0 or or any other value. Remember, keep in mind that whenever we have to solve, or you have to solve any question of quadratic equation by factorization method, it is not necessary that here it must be 1 or something else. It should not be 0 only. Whatever the number is there, minus or positive or plus, no matter, but it should not be 0, neither in factorization case, nor in completing square, and nor in the quadratic formula case. But in factorization, whatever this number is, again I am saying that it is no matter. You can even solve a question, the solution will be again right. It will not be correct, it will not be wrong, it will be right. So the thing which I want to clear is that in a completing square method, if there is something else except 1, you will have to divide the whole question by that number. This is the main important point. Whenever you have to solve a question by completing square method, here might be 1 or may not be. If it is 1, then okay, solve, continue, carry on. If it is other than 1, then you will have to divide the whole question by that number. It must be 1. For example, here is 3, so you will have to divide all the terms by 3. For example, here is 6, you will have to divide all the terms by 6. That is the main point in a completing square method. If you will not divide, your completing square formula will not become. Your completing square formula will not be formed. You will have to divide that complete equation with that number, whatever is written in the coefficient of x square. This point should be kept in mind only in a completing square method, nor in the other two. So now I am going to proceed to solve this question by factorization. 2x square plus 2x minus 12 is equal to 0. Just imagine, for example, here is 3, not 2. Then it is not necessary to divide the whole question, all the terms by 2. It is not necessary, because always try your best not to bring the friction in these terms as a coefficient, because sometimes friction will make a problem. You will not be it will not be easy for anyone, even for me also, that whenever you will have a friction in as a coefficient, then it's quite difficult to solve this question, to decide what number should be added and what number should be subtracted or should be multiplied in order to make a result. It will be quite difficult, so always try your best. Just divide by the coefficient of x square only where there is where there are the I can say the completing square numbers in the variable, in the coefficient of the variable. I mean, just imagine that I am dividing all the question by 2. It means that 2 is divisible by 2, 2 is again divisible by 2, and 12 is also completely divisible by 2. If, for example, imagine here is 11 divided by 2, so it will become friction. Don't always try to make it a whole number, not a fraction, because friction will make a problem. If you will make a friction in any term, in the second, in the first, or even in the third, it will make a problem. It will be it has a solution, but it will be quite difficult in order to solve what two numbers should be multiplied and what two numbers should be added in order to make the arrangement. So always try your best to make a whole number as a coefficient for every terms. So I'm dividing these all three terms by 2, so it will become x square plus x minus 6 is equal to 0. So this is my final answer question. Now I am going to solve this question. X square plus x minus 6 is equal to 0. Now the first thing which we have to do in a factorization is always write the equation in a descending order. What do you mean by descending order? We already know here is x power 2, again x power 1, x power 0. So that is called descending order. I mean 2, then 1, then 0. This is called descending order. So in a descending order, if you will have to count the terms from the right side, so 6 is your first term, x is your second term, and x square is your third term. Always write the equation in a descending order: x power 2, x power 1, and x power 0. So 2, 1, 0. That is called descending order. Write the equation in a descending order. Then multiply this first with the third term. Whatever the result is coming, just write on one side of the paper. So it will become minus 6x square. Multiply the first and the third term. So you can also say this one is first, this is the second, this is the third. So multiply even from left or from right, whatever you want. If you will count from right, that is 6 is 1. If you will count from the left, so x square is 1. So always multiply the first and third term, and whatever the result you obtain, write on one side of the paper. So it is minus 6x square. Now just we have the middle term, that is plus x. So now we have to split this plus x into two terms. Whenever these two terms are added, the result should be plus x, and whenever these two terms are multiplied, the result should be minus 6x square. So in order to solve this question, there may be any number by which we can make a plus x even minus 6 square, but in a numbers we have only two numbers that is possible by which we can solve this type of question. I mean to say, by which we can make, by addition we can make plus x, and by multiplication we can make minus 6x square. So now let me come to the point, that is x square plus 3x minus 2x minus 6 is equal to 0. So I just wrote it these two terms. Plus 3x minus 2x, the result is plus x. And whenever these two are multiplied, plus into minus, it will become minus. 3 into 2, it will become 6, and x into x, it will become x square. So this is the method by which these two are the only terms by which we can make both the process, both the operation, easily we can solve them. So by addition it will become plus x, by multiplication it will become minus 6x square. So now we, as I in the beginning I told about, the number of terms are not limited in the quadratic equation. Sometime it may be 1, maybe 2, maybe 3, but in general we have 3. So I just convert them, these 3 terms, into 4 terms. Here this is also a quadratic equation. We have 4 terms: x square plus 3x minus 2x minus 6. Now I am proceeding to solve the next step, that is x square plus 3x minus 2x minus 6 is equal to 0. I just converted 3 terms into 4 terms. Now in the beginning two term, one is x square and 3x. In these two terms, what is common? X is common. So it will become x plus 3. In another two term, minus 2x minus 6 minus 2 is common. So it will become x, and minus when multiplied with a plus, it will become minus, because minus 2 is multiplying with both the term x and with another term. So it will be multiplied. So the result will again become minus 2x minus 6. So here it will become 3 is equal to 0. Remember one thing, x plus 3 and x plus 3, these two factor must always be same according to variable, according to sign, according to numbers. Neither sign nor number nor the variable will be changed in these two terms. Everything should be same. So now I just converted 4 terms into 2 terms. One is this one, then minus, and another term is this one. So in these 2 terms, the common factor we already know, that is x plus 3. So x plus 3 is common. What it will remain? X minus 2 will remain. X minus 2 is equal to 0. These are two factors, x plus 3, x minus 2. These are called factors. Now x plus 3 and another x minus 2 is equal to 0. Now equate both of these factors into 0. So the result you will have x plus 3 is equal to 0, then comma x minus 2 is equal to 0. So plus 3 will come here, it will become x is equal to minus 3 and x is equal to plus 2. These two are called the roots of quadratic equation or the solution of quadratic equation. Roots of quadratic equation or also the solution of quadratic equation, but these two are called the factors of quadratic equation, x plus 3, x minus 2. These two are factors, x is equal to minus 3, x is equal to plus 2, or also we can say roots of equation or solution of equation. So in the beginning I just remind that whenever we have a quadratic equation, there are two solutions, because the degree of variable is 2, so there must be two solutions. So now at the end I just conclude, whenever these two values are put instead of 1 by 1, instead of x 1 by 1, so the equation will be satisfied. Whatever the result will come from the left side, same result will be available on the right side. So if instead of x we put x is equal to minus 3 and solve the question, so left and right will both have same value. Similarly, as x is equal to plus 2, whenever put instead of x, so after solving we will have same result on the left and right side of this quadratic equation, because these two are the solution of equation, so they both must have satisfied the equation. That was a little about quadratic equation, its general form, coefficient of quadratic equations. A should not be 0 and the degree of quadratic equation must always be 2, and whenever solved by 3 methods from any one of them, factorization, completing square, and by quadratic formula, so the result will be same and we will have two solution and two roots, I can say, of any quadratic equation. So this was something about quadratic equation. In the next video I'll explain the completing square method as well as the derivation of quadratic formula and application of quadratic formula while solving any quadratic equation by quadratic formula. So thank you so much for watching this video.